Smith. I'll be talking to you today about capital punishment in the United States. Capital punishment is defined as the legal authorized killing of someone as punishment for a crime. I'm doing this presentation today for my criminal procedures class, Professor Lori Battle, Thomas University. I'm consider myself somewhat of an expert in this area. I've done about 18 years in the Georgia Department of Corrections. Never actually worked at a facility that carried out any death penalties. Currently in the United States, there's about 30 states that use capital punishment. That means there's 20 states that does not use capital punishment. Most of your states that are using capital punishment are your southern states. 15 of the 30 are what people consider southern states. Texas leads the United States in executions and has for many years. In fact, Texas has executed about 538 offenders since 1976 alone. Texas currently has about 254 convicted offenders on death row, with 6 being women. Georgia is another popular state. Like I said, I worked with Georgia in the prison system, and so they've executed about 67 offenders since 1976. But now this is an interesting fact here that Georgia had carried out 950 executions pre-1976 of convicted offenders. Georgia only has about 68 offenders currently awaiting execution right now on death row. And then doing my research for this, I haven't found that Georgia hasn't had a death penalty case in about the last 2 years, and I haven't found anything contradicting that. The money is so high it takes to prosecute these people on death penalty cases. Over $1 million on average is what the average total is on a death penalty case. Alabama's another state there in the South, and they lag a little behind Texas and Georgia. They've had 57 offenders executed since 1976, about 708 pre-1976, and they have about 194 inmates on death row right now, 5 being women in the state of Alabama. Florida is another state that's a southern state, but Florida has a lot of population down south that are from up north, and they moved to Florida to get away from the cold, and it's tending to be a little bit more of a liberal place. Matter of fact, Florida's only executed about 3 offenders since 2015, and that was not the case because they had carried out 92 executions since 1976, and Florida has a pretty high death row population, about 396 offenders, with 5 being women there also. The death penalty, like I say, it seems to me more of a southern thing. I'm not sure why. I guess red states. I mean, we just saw that Tuesday night. Where the red states are. Give you a little bit of contrast. California is they have the death penalty, but they don't seem to be using it a whole lot. They've only carried out 13 executions since 1976, but has an extremely high death row population of 741 inmates currently awaiting execution. According to the Vera Institute of Justice, they done a survey back in 2012, and they only average, and this seems to be pretty well true from what I've read. It takes about between $30,000 to $32,000 to house one inmate that's not on death row, whereas you got an inmate that is on death row, it's about $90,000 a year. That's the overall average, United States average, and that's not counting the court costs. Like I say, it's about $1.26 million is the average for a death penalty trial. Like I say, I've looked and I cannot find a active death penalty trial or one that's happened in the last 2 years where they went for the death penalty in the state of Georgia. And I'm wondering if it's because of this money figure here. That's an extremely high amount of taxpayer money to use. And that's just a lot of money. And where we could save money, I don't know. I guess they'd rather take the plea deal and just let them go ahead and spend the rest of their life in prison. The high-end money for housing those offenders, and as well as the court costs, I'm not sure. I'm all for the death penalty myself. However, it costs taxpayers a considerable amount more than just normal court costs. To me, it's a small price to pay that the taxpayers put away the most violent of criminals. These people have carried out the most heinous criminal acts, and people are quick to, judge and say, well, it's not right for you to take their life just because they took someone else's, and it's inhumane. But, the people that they murdered or killed, we're not worried about how they were violent deaths. They suffered violent deaths at the hands of these people, and it wasn't nothing humane about that. But that's the society we live in today. Everybody's worrying about everything else. But overall, I'm for the death penalty. I mean, I think I think we waste too much time. I think they sit on death row too long. They spend too much time, and that we could cut down some of the money that way, and saving some money by executing them a little quicker. I think they have too many appeals, especially if someone is if the evidence is there, and I don't believe in executing someone if they're not guilty of the crime, but if they've been convicted, I mean, I ain't saying to just hurry it up. I want to make sure all the bases are crossing. But overall, just go ahead and quit wasting so much time. I mean, I know, like in my county I live in, Seminole County, I know the Alday murderers, those guys that was done that, the ringleader, Carl Isaac, he spent about 30 years on death row. That's entirely too long for someone to sit on death row. 30 years, I mean, it's ridiculous at that amount of money per year. It should never have ever come to that. I appreciate your time tonight, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation. And thank you very much for your time.